Hey guys, uh, decided to go ahead and pop in with another video. Um, so let's see, the last time I left off was what I had come out at 13, as lesbian, and then, things inevitably get darker and more awful, but, before I get into all of that, let me just go ahead and start by saying that, I knew long before 13 that I was different. I just didn't know what to call it. I didn't have words for it at such a young age. And, um, even at 13, there wasn't a whole lot of, uh, now you can find a lot of information at your fingertips, whether it be on the internet or with books, even. Although books are a lot more scarce, but still, nevertheless, you still have a lot more information and knowledge out there. Also, there are a lot more folks, um, that you can talk to, that you can find, um, that you can converse with, and get some knowledge on, ask questions, lean on for support, especially if your family isn't very supportive, or even if your family is supportive and you need more guidance, or just want to be around folks that are like you, or if you're still trying to figure things out, that's okay too. But when I was 13, there wasn't a whole lot of that, and certainly not where I grew up. I didn't grow up in a city setting. Where I grew up, anyone from a city would still consider that in the middle of nowhere. And frankly, it was. It was only considered a city because we had stoplights. I don't really think that anything else could really detonate it as a city. Um, I mean, we had a courthouse, um, and, we had a bazillion bars, and, a couple of fast food joints. So there was like banks and bars galore, and, terrible combination, but and churches. Uh, that was pretty much where I grew up at. So, um, you know, there wasn't a whole lot. Um, there wasn't a whole lot out there for me to lean on. Uh, there wasn't a whole lot for me to gain knowledge from, and certainly, again, the way that I grew up in, the religion that I grew up in, it just wasn't accepted. It wasn't okay. Um, you know, you just really just didn't talk about it. And while I do have to say that, one of the good things that I think, um, that I can say, is that, ironically enough, as backwoods as a lot of people would consider my upbringing, and sometimes even the way that I think about it was just really in the middle of nowhere. Um, I didn't have a whole lot, again, to really gather a lot of information from, and not a whole lot of world experience that you would get from that middle of nowhere, space. Um, I do have to say that I was raised, uh, on it, in all honesty, to never see, um, things differently, in the sense that, um, I was never brought up to be a racist, which is, I mean, I'm thankful for. But I never had to, endure that in my, immediate family. And I say that now because, at one point in time, I did, in fact, actually, get my heart broken a little bit by, my, maternal, grandmother once, when I heard her use the N word. Um, just as casually as talking about dinner. And, I don't know if she just didn't think that I heard her. I don't know if she was just in casual conversation and talking about a person, and used that word, and I definitely saw things much differently after that. Because I legitimately had absolutely no idea, no idea, um, that anyone in my family was even remotely racist. But then, of course, after that, I started opening up my eyes and realizing that some of the things that you grow up saying and things, you know, aren't in very good taste. And definitely sound and have racial undertones, which I have since educated myself on and removed that from my vocabulary. Um, that's something I strive to do. But in any sense, out of all the things that I was brought up to, I was told not to, I can't really accept myself. People around me are not going to accept me for me. Um, you know, we're going to have to make sure that we pray all of this out of you. And, um, you know, so much of who I was and who I am, um, was just determined to be just pretty much pure evil. Um, but the one good thing was that even though, um, there were racist people in my family and my immediate family, I never had to hear that. And while, again, there were some racial undertones and things, I have since learned from that and removed all of that from my life, continuing to better myself with that as well. But yeah, so that was a plus, I guess. In any case, prior to coming out at 13, I knew I was different. Uh, I knew that, I mean, in my eyes, the way that I saw it was just that I thought girls were great. They were neat. I didn't think anything of it. Of course, when you're a kid, I think adults tend to sexualize things a lot more than kids do. Kids generally don't think like that. Um, when I was younger, I didn't think about having sex with a girl. I just wanted to spend time with them. I wanted to play with them. I wanted to hang out with them. I wanted to um, just be around them. Um, not only just because I like them, but, friends and everything else. So it just, you know, they caught my eye much more so than anyone else. And again, there was nothing sexual about it. I was a child. You know, being very young, you don't look at things in a sexual manner per se. Or usually it's just like I said, neato. um, without having that vocabulary, I just assumed that that was a normal thing. I just assumed that, you know, everybody felt that. That was just I mean, obviously, girls are cool, right? So, who wouldn't want to be around girls? And then, as I got a little bit older, started getting into my teenage years, and right around a little bit before 13, is when we really started to hear a little bit more, or I started to hear a little bit more from biological mother about how awful that is, how evil that is, how disgusting that is. And the thing that kind of really bothered me was that uh, my biological mother had a best friend who was one of the most queer people I had ever encountered. Um, I mean, she was the old school, She grew up in the country. Sweetest, most caring, biggest heart. I think that I've probably one of the biggest hearted people I think I've ever known. And to the point that I guess they at one point had worked together, which is how they met. But you know, her best friend went by a male name, and that was just because apparently everyone that she worked around said that she looked like you know, this name versus the name that she was born with, and so that name stuck, and that's the only name that I knew her by. I assumed that was her name, so that's what I called her until years later when I found out that was not her real name, and it blew my mind. And the way that it came about was not from that person. It was from Bio Mother making a point to make nasty, snarky comments about me. To myself, right, to me. So, but you know, the thing of it is that I always found it very eye-opening that she would have a best friend who was married to a woman, but she could not accept me. Didn't think it was right, thought it was awful, thought I was awful. And she always tried to dress it up like, you know, it wasn't actually me, it was the devil. If I just prayed harder, it would go away. I'm not really like this. Right? I mean, no one's really like this. You just pray harder, and it'll stop. Okay. But yet she hangs out with this best friend, which again I find not only distasteful, but downright disgusting. Because I know, you know, deep down, this is how you really feel about this person, even though you don't say it. You know, this person is, I mean, a huge heart. I loved this person dearly. I became really close with this person. Years later, I would find out right before this person passed that they had discussed with Bio Mom about you know, the fact this was before, you know, I had come out at 13, and they said that, you know, there's definitely going to be some different stuff happening there, and Bio Mom brushed it off, said that it, you know, it's not going to happen. And you know, I guess that's probably why I got so close with Bio Mom's best friend, is because not only was that my one role model to look up to that was like me, but was the one person that I really just didn't have to feel. I never felt gross when I was around her, and I didn't feel like I always had to apologize or keep my head bowed or look at my feet constantly. I didn't have to breathe very lightly, not take up space. I didn't have to hide me as a person. It's very hard when you're growing up to feel like you're trying to shrink your body down into the tiniest of cubes to shove into a corner or into a little hole, so no one can see you and no one can know that you're there. And it's like that elephant in the room, right? Like, nobody wants to really talk about it, nobody wants to discuss it. They all know, but nobody really wants to address it. And while I don't necessarily think that it's something that has to be addressed every time you walk into a room. Certainly every time that you walk into a room when someone makes it apparent that there's something wrong with you, you know, that's a problem. So, we became really close, um, into into my adult life. We had a pretty good relationship for quite a while. So anyways, I knew that I was different. I also just recently, within the last, I'd say probably 5 years, started putting some things together and recognizing that a lot of the things that I thought, a lot of the things that I felt, those weren't necessarily things that most or all lesbians thought, which was there was a good reason behind that. However, I didn't recognize that. I just assumed that that was everything, namely because, again, I didn't have the vocabulary or the the I guess infrastructure to really put all this together and build on. It was simply, what actually got me to come out was, ironically enough, I was watching TV after school, and one of the talk shows came on. I believe it was Sally Jesse Raphael, which none of anyone younger than me is going to know. Or most people younger than me are not going to know who that is. But Google her. You'll be able to find her. She was a well-known talk show host. And she actually had some guests on her show, and a young lady on her show that day came out to her parents on the show. And it was the first time that I'd ever actually seen anything like that. And I suddenly, for whatever reason, just felt extremely empowered, because I thought, if this young lady can say this, on TV, for crying out loud, there are so many people that are gonna see this. And she's terrified, and she's terrified of what her parents are gonna say and what they're gonna do, but she's saying and doing all this on live TV. So I thought, well, I can come out then. I can just do it. Whatever happens, it happens. If I'm sent away, I'm sent away. I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna do it. And so I did, which we covered on the last video. So after the whole coming out, boohoo and crying, everything seemed great. It was almost like the next day, everything shifted. So, I I'm not sure exactly what happened. I don't know if Biomom's like called. I know that she was doing a lot of calling to a lot of family members, talking about a lot of things, namely me. I don't know if that was just kind of if she was getting some advice on things or what. But whatever it was, she changed her tune about how she was gonna address everything going forward. So from that point, it became all about how to make me understand that I was not gay. I did not feel those things. That was not a real thing. And if I didn't get my act together, I was going to burn in hell. So, I also believe that I touched on the fact that she was remarried in the last video. She remarried, I guess it would be stepfather. Um, so she remarried this guy, who also had two children, from a previous marriage. And they were, uh, the girl was close to my age, I think maybe a year under me, and the boy, I believe, was 2 years under me. So they were pretty close, to my age. So, um, in any case, it became a pretty hectic household, because myself and my younger sister lived there, of course. I live there full time now because I had quit doing the um, the visits over to adopt a father, right? So I lived there full time, and then my sister, was still doing the back and forth, and then his children were, mostly living there, but also visiting their biological mother, at times as well. So, it was kind of chaotic, to say the least, because we didn't live in a very big house. It was, technically, it was a one bedroom house, but uh, we ended up converting, what would be the, uh, essentially, it would be the formal dining room. We ended up converting that into a bedroom, and then what would be the mudroom got converted into a bedroom as well, and then, what was used as the laundry room ended up getting converted into a bedroom as well. So we ended up converting a one bedroom house into a one, two, three, four bedroom home, which still was, it still wasn't great because, I mean, the middle room, which was like the formal dining room, had no privacy. So, because people, you had to walk through that room all the time. You never had privacy at all. So, and basically, it was, uh, myself, my younger sister, and his daughter kind of shared that room. Um, so yeah, it was hectic. Um, but anyway, uh, so that was there, and his kids were, had been through a lot of stuff too, and so they had some issues, coming into, of course, a new home, uh, with new siblings, new rules, a new city, um, new things. That it was rough for them. It was rough for, them to come in and, settle in, and it was also rough. Um, it was also rough for me. Uh, I was again still a fairly angry person from everything that had happened, with, my adoptive father's family, and, I was, feeling the shame and the guilt, from not being straight, and, also getting a little flack from that at home, and so ultimately, uh, those things kind of really made, um, I don't know, just kind of, really made things a little rough for me. On top of which, of course, since all of that happened, at my adoptive father's family's, schoolwork had been like down in the dumps. I mean, my schoolwork went from, A's and B's to like C's, D's, and F's. I was really struggling. I was having a really hard time in school, uh, staying focused. I was having a really hard time, um, just getting my mind to focus on what it needed to focus on, past everything that had happened, and I struggled with that for a long time. And then, of course, once I was able to kind of shift my brain a little bit, by that time I was so far behind in schoolwork that I was just it was just like impossible for me to really try to catch up. So I struggled a lot in school. So that was really frustrating because I was getting reprimanded at home because of my poor grades, and then um, I was getting reprimanded because of, my crummy attitude or whatever it was. And so, it was a constant battle all the time, just staying in trouble, staying getting yelled at, staying just this constant, constant, constant. And so I just really had a hard time uh, accepting new people into the home. Um, we got into a few fights, a couple of physical altercations. Um, there were some serious situations where, uh, at one point, um, his daughter attempted to attack me outside, and I picked her up and slammed her on the concrete, and then left, walked away, walked into the house. I There was one point in time where his son was um, talking about my biological mother and calling her, a whore and all kinds of terrible names. Of course, this is the only parent that I have at this point. So while, um, you know, while I realize that, some of the things that I'm saying, it sounds pretty obvious, like uh, why are you so attached, or whatever. You have to remember, this has been the only parent that has been consistent, in my life. And while, looking back now, there's a lot of things there, right? I mean, there's a lot of super big red flags, but when you're a kid, you have the one constant. You got to hang on to something, and you tend to realize that, oh, okay, so there's I'm getting in trouble because it's me. It's certainly, it can't be the grown up, and it can't be the person that I look to for answers, and it can't be that person. So it's definitely got to be me, right? Um, I mean, everybody else left or threatened to leave, or did all these terrible things, but she's still here. So it's definitely got to be me. I'm definitely the problem. Is what it boils down to. So, um, you know, he was talking a lot of stuff, and I told him to stop. He refused to stop. So I took a broom handle and I racked him up, and that was the two major altercations that I ever had with them. Of course, we all had, sibling rivalry type stuff, or, had some words here and there, or uh, bickering, catfighting kind of stuff. But those were the two big major ones, and that I was involved in. Um, again, I mean, I'm not proud of what I did, but, um, at the time, I, I, I was doing the best that I could do. Um, I don't think that that was necessarily right, but I also didn't have an adult brain then. I had a kid's brain, and it was forming around all of the trauma that a kid should not have to deal with. And so, there's a lot of things that your body does to try to protect you, and there's only so much that a person can take without some sort of an outlet. And you know, I had hit my limit, and I did these things again, not because I was trying to be macho or whatever. I just felt like, everything was so out of control, and things were people were able to say these things, and I couldn't even, I couldn't walk away. I mean, I couldn't walk away. Um, that just wasn't an option at that time. So, um, at any rate, about 14 and a half or so, I was almost 15. I got my first job. Um, and right before I got my first, like right before I got my first job, um, I let's see, yeah, it was like right before. I want to say right after I came out. I'd say probably within 6 months of me coming out. Uh, Stepfather walks into my room and starts chatting with me, which is bizarre because he never has anything to say to me at all. He barely looks at me. And he's, talking to me about the weather and asking me, if I have any plans for the day, which is really bizarre because I'm not allowed to really go anywhere. You know, no one drives us anywhere. We don't like go to like the mall or stores or anything like that. We don't do any of that stuff. We don't go to the movies really. I mean, we just don't do anything. We're either outside playing or you're inside. And if you're inside, it better be rainy or you better be cleaning. That's the options that you have. So, you know, it was very weird and I was cautious about it, but it also felt kind of nice to have somebody that acted like they were interested in what I was doing. And I used to be huge into Legos, which I'd like to say used to, but honestly, I still love Legos. So, um, and I would build these, elaborate things, and it would take up my floor, and I would have to, shove it off to the side and continue on the next day when I would get too tired. Uh, and I had some built in there, and we were talking about those a little bit, and then he just kind of started sneaking in these questions about, uh, you know, do you is there anybody that you like at school? Is there anything that you want to talk about? Is there anything that you want to discuss? Do you need an ear or a shoulder or anything like that? And me being young and dumb, I fell for it. And I was like, actually, yeah, there's a girl at school that I think is really cute. um but I don't know how to tell her that, and I also don't think that she likes girls, so I'm not gonna say anything. But I think that she's really cool, and I want to hang out with her, but I don't think it's gonna happen. And that was pretty much that. I think I told him, actually, I'm pretty certain that I told him that I had wrote her letters that I never intended on giving to her because, I mean, obviously, right? I mean, um, uh, the place that I live, guys come to school with their shotguns and their truck, right? I mean, I could get shot at any moment. So, um, I was like, I don't intend on ever delivering these, but I wrote out how I feel and all that good stuff. And, folded it all up, all fancy schmancy, and shoved it off in a drawer and planned on throwing it away. But I didn't want anybody at home to see it. So, and I didn't want to throw it away at school because somebody might see it there. So I just kind of was hanging on to it. Um, uh, Little did I know that he was collecting intel. So a couple days later, I get called in, and I. I walk into my room after school and find all of the letters are piled on top of my bed. Um, and I was like, what's going on? This is not okay, and I'm freaking out. And so I'm like, who found all these, and what's going on? Um, if you're young like that, regardless, that's just absolutely, Im- I mean, humiliating to have that kind of stuff be read by people that are not supposed to be reading it. Um, and furthermore, the situation that I was in. So I'm freaking out, and I'm like, I don't know who had this out, and then nobody's home, and so I get called into my bio mom's bedroom, and I'm getting reprimanded for all this stuff that I'm writing and what's going on, and I hear that you like somebody at school, and at that point, I realized that everything that I thought, that I was feeling like somebody was actually trying to be nice to me, what turned out to be, collecting things so I could get in trouble, so I could get yelled at, so I could be told how disgusting I was, or how, uh, gross that is, how wrong that is, how evil that is, and I was absolutely and utterly humiliated. It was downright just awful, right? For a kid, I mean, that's just awful. And honestly, I mean, think of somebody going through your phone and text messages to your spouse, or emails that that are to your significant other, or whatever the case may be. I mean, those things are not meant for anyone else. That's meant for that particular person and that person alone. So if people are reading those things and essentially passing them around and letting people see that, and then confronting you on things that is none of their business to begin with, that's it's pretty humiliating. So, needless to say, I was grounded, and got into a lot of trouble. I had my little radio that I had it taken away. We didn't have TVs in our room. That wasn't even a thing because we had huge box TVs. They weren't the cool flat ones. So, I didn't have an 80-pound TV in my room. All I had was like a little tiny radio that had like one cassette player on it. That got taken away, and I had like stuff where I like wrote and stuff. I used to write poems, and write down your thoughts. Not really a journal so much, but just kind of writing stuff down. And uh, a lot of that stuff. The only thing that I was allowed to do was I was allowed to write, and I was allowed to do homework. So anything else that was in my room that was, books, I wasn't allowed to read. I wasn't allowed to do anything that was uh, fun whatsoever. It was just very minimalistic, and that was that. Um, Chores, housework, things like that. Uh, so we moved past that, and so I'm 14 and a half roughly now. Mind you, all of this is continues on this way. It's basically just very touch and go. When I walk into the house, my eyes go down. I don't talk to anybody. I stay grounded anyways because of my schoolwork. We discussed that a few minutes ago. So I'm constantly grounded anyway. I very rarely get to do much of anything because I'm staying grounded, either from schoolwork or just because I'm different. And so, ergos, months and months and months pass. And I get my first job right before my 15th birthday. And I start working. And so I'm working, and I'm making a little bit of money. Of course, when you're a kid, it's tons of money because you're a kid. But when I was younger, let's see, I honestly can't remember, but I think it was still like 7.25 or something like that an hour. I believe 7, no, 5.15 maybe. I think that was 5.15 an hour. I don't know, something. So yeah, it was minimum wage, and I was making pizzas, and I got the job with one of my very best friends, who I still love dearly today. Um, and if you're watching, I love you. Um, but yeah, so we had a good time there. We worked, but unfortunately, stepfather also worked there, and so I had to see him quite often, and I wasn't too thrilled about that. But um, in any case, when I worked and he did not, it was nice to get away um, from the chaos, and I had a really good time. Like I said, my best friend worked there, so we goofed off and had a good time, and uh, it was nice making money, having some fun, and yeah, I started making my own money, so I started deciding that I was gonna start buying clothes and things that I wanted to wear, and the clothes that I wanted to wear, of course, did not match what uh, Bio Mom wanted me to wear. So I wasn't allowed to wear these big baggy jeans. Of course, when I was in school, Jinkos was a huge thing, and you know, she didn't want me to wear them, but I bought them and wore them, and she didn't throw too much of a fit about them. But getting down to even underwear, I mean, I wasn't allowed to buy the underwear that I wanted to buy because they were manly, and they weren't supposed to be for me. So when I bought them, she would go through my drawers and confiscate uh, anything that she didn't deem was okay and throw it away. Um, so that happened frequently, to the point that I quit buying. I quit buying some of the stuff, most of it, because I got tired of it getting thrown away. Um, I wasn't allowed to wear any kind of deodorant or cologne that I wanted to wear, because I was trying to make myself something that I wasn't, and that was not okay. And so those things would also get thrown away. Um, so there was a lot of things that I spent money on, that I worked for, that ultimately wouldn't have hurt a single person in the world, but um, it was for me to express myself, to be who I was, and because that was deemed not okay, not acceptable, not me for real. Um, she would go through my drawers while I wasn't home and throw my things away. And then when I would come home, I wasn't really allowed to question it. If it was gone, then I knew that it was gone. We didn't discuss it. After the first time, we just didn't discuss it. So I just didn't do it anymore, because I already knew it was gonna happen. Um, so that's kind of another, like, kick to the gut, right? I mean, you want to be able to express yourself, figure out who you are, and when you're that age, regardless of whether you are still trying to figure out if you like boys or you like girls or you like anybody or you don't like anybody, or whatever the case is, when you're young like that, it's really hard. You got school, your hormones are starting to go crazy. You're growing up, so your body parts are doing weird things, and your body is doing weird things, and your voice sometimes does weird things. Your face, you're getting acne, and then you're greasy, and you're getting body odor, and you're what all of these things are going so crazy and weird and doing things that it never did before. And then on top of that, you're trying to figure out who you are as a person. So you're trying out, different clothes, different um hairstyles, makeup, maybe. No makeup, maybe. Right? Do I like painted nails? Do I not like painted? All of these things, all of these options that you have out there, that you're trying to figure out, is this something that makes me me? 90% of those options were not options for me. Those were not okay. Um, I was given a very specific set of options, and those options were what I was to go by. Doesn't matter if it's not something I liked. I wasn't allowed to cut my hair. My hair had to be long. I had hair down to my butt, and I wasn't allowed to cut it. It didn't matter that I didn't like it. It didn't matter that it didn't fit me. It didn't matter that I didn't see myself that way. it wasn't going to get cut. Point blank, period. Doesn't matter that it's my hair, it doesn't get cut. It doesn't matter that I don't like those particular underwear, but I wanted to wear these. Doesn't matter. That's not okay. Point blank. Right? Doesn't matter if you like this smell over this smell. We don't care. It's not you. It's not for you to decide. So all of those options that I got to kind of, those informative years of figuring out who you are, I got to figure out who I was supposed to be by their standards, by BioMom standards, by my family standards. And I never really got to discover who I was as a person until I reached adulthood, really. So, yeah, so it's a lot of those things were taken from me. A lot of those options were taken from me. A lot of those moments that a lot of kids get, I didn't get any of those options. Those were not. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew who I felt like I was, but that person wasn't allowed to exist. So I spent a lot of time getting rid of that person. And it worked for a long time. Sorta. So, in any case, knowing what, that you have so many options at your fingertips now, and so much to choose from, so much information to go after and look at, and all of these things, it's really, really fantastic. And I know that even though all of this is out there, I know that some people are still going to be in the situation that I was in, or worse, where you're not given the options to choose who you really are. You're not given the okay to explore you, to see what kind of person you feel like you really are, whether that's your taste in music, or your clothing, or the people that you like or don't like, or anything that would make you you. Some people don't get that option. So I want you to know that if you're one of those people, then it will get better. Unfortunately, right now, I realize how badly it really blows. I really do, and I'm so sorry. But keep at it, and do not push the person that you really are away. Take my word for it that it was much harder to get rid of the real me than it was to actually find me. And I really wish that I had resisted just a little bit longer, because I think that had I done that, I would have been able to be my real, true, authentic self much sooner, and I would have been so much more happy for earlier on in my life. But I know how beat down and discouraging that it can be, but just know that it does get better. It really does. So just hang in there a little bit longer, and I'll bring you the next episode later, and hopefully we can actually get somewhere on that one, because I spent a lot of time on all this. So we'll move up. Let's see. So we're leaving off on making pizzas and losing who we really are. We'll pick up after that. Okay. Hope you guys having a great day. Be good. Take care. I'll see you next time.